Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Alanna Schubach. And Alanna is a debut author, and she has written her first book. And Alanna, you can show it to us if you would like.
Sure, gladly.
Okay, and for readers unfamiliar with your work, how would you describe what you write?
So I often write, so this is my first novel, but I've also written short stories. And I often write fiction that includes some kind of element of fantasy or science fiction or what some might call magical realism. But it's often grounded in an otherwise realistic setting. So it's kind of in a couple different genres at once.
Okay, and what can readers expect from the Nobodies?
So The Nobodies is the story of two friends, Nina and Jess, who discover as children that they have the ability to switch bodies. So they can literally, by touching their foreheads together, enter each other's bodies, walk around in each other's shoes, live each other's lives. And so the novel follows them over the course of about 20 years of friendship and explores the ways in which they use this power, often to kind of intervene in each other's lives, and it causes a lot of complications over the course of their friendship.
I would imagine it would. So, what do you think draws readers to these kinds of books?
Well, I hope for my book it's the relationship, the central relationship between the two friends, and and I feel like in recent years there's been more literature about friendship between women. It seems like that's a kind of relationship that can be particularly intense and complex, and I think it's by no means been exhausted by some of the great books out there on that subject. And I think there's a lot more to explore. So I'm hoping that central relationship will really draw in readers.
Okay, so what was the inspiration for the Nobodies?
So yeah, I wanted to write about the particular kind of intimacy and intensity that can form between female friends, especially when they're young. And so I came across this kind of metaphor about the idea of switching bodies, switching lives, because I think often friends have this like possessiveness of each other and sometimes a jealousy of each other, and sometimes it feels like your friend has something that you find lacking in yourself and perhaps you yearn for what she might have, so these kinds of feelings that can crop up, I think particularly when you're young. I was really interested in exploring through this central device of body swapping.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what were the steps that you took to take it from initial inspiration to finished product?
So it actually started off as a short story, because I was primarily a short story writer, and I'm in a couple of different writing groups where we meet regularly and share each other's work. And I remember one of my groups read the story, and they all kind of gave me the feedback that there was a lot more that I could explore here. And I think I kind of knew that too deep down, but maybe felt a little intimidated by the idea of taking on a novel. But that gave me the encouragement I needed to pursue that. So it was a writing process of maybe about 3 or so years of writing that initial first draft. And then later I did kind of a major revision of the story that I had, a big rewrite, and altogether probably 4 to 5 years to get from idea to publication.
Wow. Okay. So what kind of research went into writing this book? And, how long did it take you to research it?
I think I mean, I did a little bit of research. There wasn't so much required, I think, because a lot of it was just, came from my imagination.
Yeah.
But because the book spans quite a bit of time, parts of it take place in the 90s, which is when I was growing up, when I was in elementary and junior high school and part of high school as well. And so I definitely needed to go back and rely on more than just my memories, go back and look at, okay, what was happening during this time culturally, politically, what was the music, what was the fashion, make sure I had all the dates right, because those elements were really important because I wanted the story to be set in a world that was realistic. So I guess I researched the 90s, which was a lot of fun for me because it was also, my coming of age and a time I remember really fondly.
Ah, okay. What's your favorite research story? Do you have a favorite research story?
You mean that as a reader or in my own research experience?
In your own research as a writer.
I think probably going back and listening to the music at that time, the music that I really loved, like I don't know, like a lot of the grunge rock, and I was a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan. That was the first concert I ever went to. So I think like going back and listening to that music again and doing a little research about what was happening, culturally, I think that was probably my favorite part.
It's interesting that music kind of makes a decade, or it makes a time period. It's very interesting.
So much so, yeah. It's it's funny, and I feel like the 90s are really back right now. I saw some teenagers in the park a few weeks ago, and they were blasting Nirvana, and it was just like a time warp. It was so strange. But oh my God, I'm glad young people are still listening to this stuff.
Wow. So what was your biggest challenge that you had in writing and putting out the Nobodies?
I think a big challenge was just finding the time and keeping motivated. Because at the same time that I was writing the first draft, I was also working as a freelance journalist and teaching. And so I was juggling like 5 different gigs. And so time management was really tricky. And I think, the thing with writing, if you don't have a deadline, if you don't have a book contract, it's all on you. All the motivation has to come from within. And so that can be quite difficult, Yeah,
that definitely makes sense. Yeah. But so how did you overcome that?
Well, I think, I mentioned I'm in some writing groups. I think being in these writing groups was really helpful because we had, regular meetings. So I had deadlines that I had to meet, because I didn't want to lose face in front of my writing group peers. Like I wanted to, have new pages for them. And then of course, they were incredibly encouraging and supportive and gave me feedback that was really helpful. So I think, the support of other writers, and then just, friends and family who knew I was working on this and, believed in me. I think that was really, really instrumental. Yeah.
Right. I think the more support you have, I think the easier it is for you.
Definitely, because writing is so solitary. So you need to have some kind of sense of, a support system, a community that you're a part of. Otherwise, I think it's really tough.
Right. So what character did you love or hate the most while you were writing this book, and why?
Well, I think I don't think I hate any characters. There's definitely some people in the book who are probably not the most admirable, but I just I just want to create characters who feel like real people, which is complicated. But I guess I feel the most like love and affection for the 2 central characters, Nina and Jess. And I mean, they're both really complicated too and make decisions that are probably questionable at best sometimes, and often feel like antagonistic toward each other, perceive each other at least that way. But I think each of them, to me, kind of has their reasons for everything they do. I feel like there's a cause and effect to what they're feeling and their actions that make sense to me. And so just like kind of knowing them and understanding them on that level makes me kind of feel love and affection for them. Yeah.
Okay. So what else can we expect from you in the near future?
Well, I think hopefully more to come. I have a short story collection that is not, I don't know if and when it'll come out, but I have a lot of short stories published individually that are available to be read, and I'm hoping to gather those into a collection. And I am currently working on a second novel, and it's in the very, very messy first draft phase, but hoping I can pull it together. I've done it once before, so I think I can do it again, and so ideally in the near future you'll be seeing that too.
Yeah, it's always, if you do it once, you can do it, right?
Yeah, I think each time it still probably feels just as difficult, but at least now I know that I've done it once before. So I have a little more faith in myself to like figure it out a second time.
Right. Okay, now I have some questions for you about being a writer.
Sure.
What's your favorite part of being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process?
I think I actually just really love having a project underway. There are some writers who say they prefer to have written as opposed to like be writing, but I love when there's something that I'm in the midst of, a big project, and I'm just kind of like constantly thinking about it and jotting down notes and gathering ideas and just visiting that world of whatever the project is.
So you enjoy the process of writing?
I do, yeah. I think you kind of like, I would hope that most writers at least find some enjoyment or fun in it, because it is really hard. So hopefully there's some element of like play. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you consider the most challenging part of the writing process? And how do you overcome that?
I think with something like a novel, during like there's a phase in the first draft where you've, at least for me, because I think I write in a very exploratory way, I don't plan a ton in advance. So there's a point at which I've put so much into the novel, and it's like, now what do I do with all of this? All of these ideas and characters and situations. And so like figuring out how to unravel it all and find some kind of resolution that will be satisfying. I think that's probably the most challenging, at least for the writing process. And then of course the process of like of publication and finding a home for it can be really challenging too.
Right. So you're a pantser.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm a pantser.
Right. So you don't sit there and have an outline and go, each chapter.
No, not really. I have notes. I have like a lot of notes for myself or ideas of what might come next, or even further down the line. But I usually don't work off an outline until I'm pretty far into the draft. Yeah.
And so the characters kind of, tell you what's happening, right?
Yes. So they can surprise me, which I think is good.
Yeah.
But then it does mean quite a lot of work once I finish the first draft and I have to go back and revise.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever found that that the characters are kind of telling you to go one way and you say, no, I don't want that?
Yeah, definitely. Like this novel I'm working on now, I set out with the plan of just having one narrator. And then all of a sudden this other character decided that she was going to be a narrator too. So, and I thought, well, God, that really complicates things. Now I have 2 point of view characters, but I think it's the right move. So going along with it.
Yep, that's great. So what has been your favorite adventure during your writing career?
Ooh, that's a great question. I've been very lucky to get to do a few different writing residencies, where you go off to some kind of beautiful bucolic location and all you have to do is hang out there and write. And there are often other writers there and then other artists from other kinds of disciplines as well. And I've done a few of these residencies, and it definitely is an adventure because you're out of your comfort zone. You're around total strangers, often strangers who are like incredibly impressive and a little intimidating. and you have nothing but time, which is wonderful, but also like daunting because you want to make the most of it, you know? But I've found that every time I've done a residency, I've gotten so much accomplished and had like breakthroughs for whatever project I'm working on. So yeah, that's probably my favorite experience so far.
Great. So what is the greatest lesson that you've learned thus far in your writing career?
I think it's perseverance, you know. It took me longer than I would have expected or planned for to get to this point. But I think these things that are these exciting things that are happening, publishing a novel, I think it is coming at the right time for me. But it required a lot of perseverance in the face of, you know, disappointments, rejections, you know, struggles with the process itself. So you have to be almost like stubborn, and in the face of a lot of no's or total lack of interest, somehow find that you know, fortitude to keep going, which can be really hard.
Mhm. How long did it take you to write the Nobodies?
So the first draft was probably about 3 years or so, maybe a little bit longer. And then I did a major revision that was really more like a rewrite. That was several more months. So I would say 4 to 5 years total. Yeah, so that's a long time. It's a really long
Yeah,
time.
it
Yeah.
is quite a while. Yeah. So, in addition to what you were just saying, what piece of advice would you want to share with other writers?
I think definitely the perseverance is really important, and trying to find a way to not be too rattled by rejection, because I think often rejection is not so much, you know, a referendum on your skill as a writer. It might just have to do with timing or not finding the right editor or the right publisher or whatever. And so, you know, to keep going and hopefully find satisfaction in the work itself and in the process itself. And then I would say also trying to connect with a larger community of writers, you know, and so maybe that means like going to readings, going to literary events, trying to form writing groups, maybe going to like conferences, residencies, these kinds of places where you can connect with other writers and maybe other artists from other disciplines too, because I think that can be really inspiring. So that's important.
Have there been any other groups or clubs or organizations that have helped you in your career?
Definitely the residencies I've gone to, and also I teach for the Gotham Writers Workshop, which is based in New York, and I've found that teaching workshops has been like actually helpful to me as a writer as well, because if not only do I get to read the work of really talented students and take inspiration from that, but it kind of forces me to articulate what I believe to be true about writing and the process. And so that's really helpful for me. So yeah.
Great. Now I have some questions about you as a person.
Okay.
What is one thing that most people don't realize about you?
Well, I think, you know, I think maybe if a person was just reading my work, they might think I'm quite a serious person or a dark person, because, you know, my fiction often does go to dark places, but I'm actually, I think, a very like goofy, silly person in real life. So that might be a bit surprising. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds great. Is there any question that you wish interviewers would ask you, and what would the answers be?
You know what? Honestly, I haven't been interviewed very much yet. So I'm not, I'm kind of new to this. So I love your questions, actually. Yeah, I don't know if I have any additions at this point.
Okay, that makes sense. So what is or are your passions when you're not writing? And how do you make time for your non-writing hobbies and things that you love?
Let's see. Well, I really love film. I love watching movies. I have had a ton of time for that especially during, you know, the earlier days of the pandemic when we were all kind of stuck
Right.
at home. So I watched a lot of movies, caught up on a lot of classic films I'd never seen before. You know, and I live in New York, so there's great theaters, and there's great resources for that. Yeah, I would say I'm just interested in the other arts, other, disciplines, even though I can't really do any of them myself. But I love going to museums, I love going to concerts, and just taking in other people's creative work. So now I actually am able to venture out a bit. Things have opened up again, so I've been trying to pursue that.
Okay. And what are some of your writing related hobbies, crafts, or addictions?
Um, Writing related hobbies. Well, I also like writing short stories. I mean, I'm a big reader. I'm in a reading
Right.
actually. So one of my pandemic activities has been forming a reading group where we've taken on classics that have been kind of daunting to us. So we read Moby Dick, we read Middlemarch, we just read Swan's Way, and Proust was something that I'd felt guilty that I'd never read Proust. But so it was really great to do that within a group and meet regularly to discuss. So I'm hoping we can continue taking on those books that maybe we've been avoiding because they seem kind of intimidating.
Oh, that's great. That's such a great idea. I
Yeah.
love that. So what does your writing space look like? And what do you need to have around you while you're writing or editing?
Well, I think, luckily I'm pretty flexible on that front. Because again, living in New York, I'm in a pretty small apartment. I have just like a little corner of a room. But I also go to a shared workspace. So I go to the Center for Fiction, which is a really great bookstore, library, and writing space pretty close to me in Brooklyn. And they have a writer's studio where you can go and just sit down at a desk and work, and it's really peaceful and it's a lovely environment. So so I often do my writing there because there's just a lot of distractions at home, So I think just as a distraction-free space as much as that is possible.
Do you prefer music or silence or but when you're writing?
Yeah, if I do listen to music, I need it to be instrumental. So sometimes I'll just listen to like classical or just like really kind of mellow, chill, like electronic music, because I think when I hear, I tend to pay really close attention to lyrics. So if there's like words coming at me, it's gonna be too much of a distraction from writing.
Mm-hmm. Right. And do you need to have something to drink or eat or anything like that with you?
Coffee, coffee, caffeine, definitely. I feel like after that first cup of coffee in the morning is when I'm at my best, and then it's all kind of like downhill from there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I'm more productive in the morning after I have some coffee.
So your productive times are the mornings.
Usually, but sometimes you have to be flexible, Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Writers often have furry or feathered or otherwise non-human companions to help them through their work. And do you have any of those? And do they help or hinder you?
I sure do. Yes, I have a cat. Her name is Shiso, she's named after a Japanese herb. I lived in Japan for several years. So she is often just kind of quiet. Like during the day, she's mostly just sleeping, and just quietly by my side. But if it's getting too close to dinner time, then she's going to start, walking across the laptop, and it's going to be very difficult to get work done. But she's become somewhat famous because every Friday I post a series of photos of her to my Instagram, and so it seems like people have come to really anticipate the Friday Shiso photos. So I mean, for a while my joke was that she was going to get a book deal before I did because she was getting really famous.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Okay. I only have two more questions for you. One is, where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? And every video, I always plug Annie's, and I say that you can get Alanna's book at Annie's Bookstop of Worcester. You can call us at 508-796-5613. or you can send us an email at orders@anniesbooksworcester.com, and we'll mail you the books. And where else can people find your book?
So definitely the usual, online vendors for sure. On my website, I link to several places where you can order the book. So my website is alannashubach.com. I always like to suggest bookshop.org because they support independent bookstores. So I think that's a great place to go to if you're going to order online.
Great. Okay. And how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Oh, great. Well, you can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. And my handle in both of those places is just my name, Alanna Schubach, which I know is can be a little hard to spell. But as far as I know, I'm the only Alanna Schubach around. So hopefully if you Google me, those will just come up right away.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And Alanna, and if you ever get to around the Worcester area, we'd love to have you come to our store.
I would love to come visit. Thank you so much.
Okay. And Alanna Schubach, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.